www.tellest.com. If you want to go there, you can actually look in the banner, and we give away 3 free ebooks to anybody who signs up for the newsletter.
And free is good, all right? That's awesome. All right, our next panelist we're going to bring up is ex-wrestler, current wrestler. He dabbles still. He is also an amazing artist that I've seen on his Instagram lately. Please welcome from the Blacklisted podcast, Mr. Rodney Nubius Black Johnson.
Hey!
And as he gets ready to sit down,
Sit in the middle.
wherever you want to sit, buddy.
Sit as close to me as possible,
This
right?
is you come prepared. Is
I
that
feel Alpha Predator today.
is that Captain America-esque Shield agent?
Black Captain America.
Okay.
We spoiling stuff now.
And give us some plugs out before I introduce our next panelist. Into the microphone.
Yeah, microphone. Is it on?
I think. Yes.
We're on. I'm from the Blacklisted podcast. It's a podcast of everything and anything in pop culture with an urban point of view. That's how we started out. And for the non-melanated people in the crowd, that means 4 black guys arguing about stuff. And that's basically what it is. And we argue about the pop culture, superheroes, comic books, movies, whatever tickles our fancy, music. But it usually ends up with like a big schmoz. And if you can imagine, close your eyes, we're rolling around in my living room while my dog is cheering us on, probably eating chips and drinking beer, saying, yeah, fight, use knives. That's what we do. So if you want to hear some really wacky, off-kilter side of the world of pop culture, look us up, Blacklisted Podcast. We're on all your places where you steal your podcasts for free. We don't make a dime on it, unlike Tellus. But it ain't about the money. It's about having fun and just, this is back when we were kids. We would talk about this stuff, and even as young adults, we'll go to the movies, go to the local diner, drink coffee, and complain of how bad stuff is. You don't have to do that too much anymore. X-Men Dark Phoenix. But that's what we do. So look us up, Blacklisted Podcast. We're out there. We'll post pictures. We're going to take pictures of Firestorm and all you other guys out there. Supergirl, we're taking pictures. We're going to put them on our Facebook. We're on Facebook and Instagram. And where else are we?
Twitter.
Huh?
Facebook,
Twitter.
Instagram,
I don't know
Twitter.
any of that tech stuff. The tech guys down there. So, and we talk pro wrestling too. So we do a little bit of everything. So look us up. I hope you enjoy the rest of the show.
And our last panelist today is a good buddy of mine from the I Like to Movie podcast. He reviews movies on cinema76.com. There's probably a bunch of other places you can find him. Please welcome Mr. Garrett Smith. And make sure you get your plugs out there. You're a podcaster. Please don't make me tell you to talk into the microphone.
I know how to talk into the microphone. I got that. Yeah, thanks for having me, man. Yeah, I have a podcast called I Like to Movie. It's the exact opposite of Rodney's. It's a bunch of boring white guys talking about boring white guy stuff. If you've heard white guys talk before, you've heard our podcast. But please, find us online and look us up. It's pretty fun. We just did an interview with a German filmmaker, Chris Tauber. He made a zombie movie called Most Beautiful Railway. We just interviewed him. That episode is up now. We've talked to Sean Baker, the guy that made the Florida Project. We talked to Phil Nobile Jr., the guy that is doing the Fangoria reboot that's on shelves now. So yeah, we have some cool stuff up there. Check us out. I Like to Movie. Numeric 2 in there, yeah.
You'll find it. And I don't know if I officially introduced myself. I am Kevin Gallagher, host of the Everything is Awesome podcast. You can find on awesomepodcast.com, where we sit around and just chat with awesome people about awesome things. Many of them from Philadelphia, which I love this city, so I'm very happy that they allow us to do this. How's everyone's Wizard World going? All right, there we go. We have an audience tonight. Thursday night, it was very good. It was nice.
In the house, Phil.
I do want to mention something, Garrett. There are children in the audience, Garrett.
Did I already swear?
No, I'm just.
Oh, okay.
I'm prepping.
Yeah.
So don't.
No cussing? We can't cuss?
No.
Yeah, no. I am definitely going to get Kevin in trouble. I apologize to all the children now.
We got Harry Potter, Supergirl out there. Liz,
She can handle kryptonite. She can handle.
All right, fair enough.
Why am I don't got a booming bass voice.
Yeah, I don't.
Got a booming bass voice.
Do you want to switch microphones?
Nothing's going to change.
Let's see.
How's that?
Yes, it's awesome.
All right, everyone's happy with their microphones.
Yeah.
So first thing I want to talk about when it comes to Marvel's Endgame, as we said, we're spoiling it, guys. So if you haven't seen it, la 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 for the next 45 minutes, and take a nap, whatever. I assume you all three saw it at least once.
I like that you think someone's going to sit here for 45 minutes while we spoil a movie they don't want to hear about, when there's an entire comic book convention happening outside this room.
This is the place to be. It's nice and cool in here. Listen.
Doesn't smell.
She gets it.
Yeah.
No.
Trust me, later on it's getting right.
So I wanted to get initial reactions before we get into the deep stuff with Marvel's Endgame. Let's start with you, Gary.
Oh, okay. So I'm probably going to be the Marvel skeptic on the panel, generally speaking, and I really liked Endgame.
Yes.
Like a lot. I really liked it a lot.
I was going to say, wait a second, this is different.
No. I'm prefacing that like I'm normally a skeptic about these movies, and I really liked Endgame.
Yeah. So I try to not get a bunch of fanboys onto the panel when we talk about Marvel or DC or whatever we're talking about. And Garrett is definitely like he likes the Marvel movies.
I do like them, but
like at a distance.
Man, yeah, I could do without that gray gravy color palette they use in every freaking movie.
But Endgame you enjoyed.
Yeah, I did. I really did. Yeah.
Rodney.
It was a good, see, I ain't him. I like my gravy, so hush. It was a great close of close to 11 years of storytelling. And it didn't just close the book, but it left some pages open. So it's up for interpretation. So it hit the feels. I was in there crying like a little, no offense, little girl. I was crying like a little girl, but I cried at the weird parts. Not at the parts you thought I was going to cry at.
I want to save that. That's a question that I'm going to have now because I cried a lot too.
It was definitely worth the wait. It was worth the wait.
Mike.
So I'm probably the biggest Marvel fanboy on this table.
I'm wearing a Captain America hat.
Yeah, but that's just to cover your bald head.
Fair.
I mean, the whole
this
thing.
Is because I said he wasn't funny on Thursday.
That's the only way I'm going to be funny is if I take jabs. I feel like this movie could have been an hour and a half, 2 hours longer, and I would have sat through it and felt like it was a 2-hour movie. It was fantastic.
I like this movie, but you're insane.
Oh, I would have loved it. And we had no problem each time that we watched it thinking, like, where's the time?
I peed more during Pokemon, Pikachu or whatever it's called, than I did during Endgame. I sat in the seat.
Well, I didn't drink any soda or any of that, and I'm a diabetic, so my sugar was dropping. I'm like, is Thor fat or am I going to a coma?
All right, well that's
so
a good.
Pikachu.
Let's start with there. What did you think about some of like the drastic changes that these characters went through? We see them open immediately after Infinity War almost, or a couple of weeks after. But then after a half hour, it jumps 5 years in the future. What about these drastic changes? What character did you feel had like the best story, I guess, in that immediateness of like change? Okay, everyone said
Iron Man. So
I can hear everyone in the crowd saying Iron Man, and I guess I do agree with that. Yeah, him having a daughter is like a pretty. That's like a very interesting thing to put that character through.
Yes.
And it's considering the history that Tony has had through the movies to give him some sort of. What do you want to call that? Like an anchor to the world is pretty interesting because normally he is only out for himself. So giving him something to care about that's not him is pretty interesting.
And it's the character who is able to save everybody and kind of turn back time, if you will. He's got the one reason not to. He has everything to lose in the world that was ruined by Thanos. So I really enjoyed that aspect of Tony as well. And I don't know if he's my favorite though. I want to see what everyone else says before I chime in.
He's definitely not my favorite Avenger.
No, I mean, but like the
stories
of that story.
Yeah. Okay.
I think. I mean, I guess he has to be right because it's all the last 11 years has been about Tony at the end of the day.
I'll tell you what the coolest one was Hawkeye. Yes. He just basically becomes John Wick in this movie, and I was like, I am totally into this. I just want this movie to become that movie.
I'm sure we'll talk more Hawkeye in a little bit. Rodney, what's character did you?
We had this argument literally on our podcast that some of our other members, they're so static. They want characters. They want the Hulk to be dumb and strong. They want, Black Widow to be silent but deadly, but That sounds like a fart. But the one that got me and the one I really related to was Thor.
Yep.
Because I'm not the skinniest guy in the room, you know, and I'm like, I could be a superhero too. I could be a fat Thor.
Yeah.
You know, they got black people in Asgard. They proved that.
Yeah.
So
It was cool that he like was still fat at the end too, right? Like
exactly.
when he does like defeat people, it's not like he has to become this heroic chiseled guy again.
And
He's still able to do it.
everybody here, man, woman, child, Marvel told you you could be a hero.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what you look like or if you're jacked up and cut or whatever. But the fact that Thor, in my opinion, lost more than anybody. Mm-hmm. He lost his best friend. He lost his brother. He lost his people. He lost himself.
His home, his entire planet, an entire race of people that he's from.
His
favorite toy.
Some people giggled and were like, "Oh, it's funny." He sat around eating donuts all day.
An eye.
He lost an eye. He was going through post-traumatic stress.
We could spend an hour and a half here talking about everything I
I
lost.
just love the fact that Thor took it upon himself that he was a failure and a loser, and nobody in here ever felt that way. Everybody felt that way. And when he made skip forward, but when he went and see his mom, I thought I was going to die because I've been through that.
When I saw the movie the second time, that was the scene that hit me the most. Was the scene with his mom.
That's the scene that got me. Is like I remember trying to say, I know you're a teenager. I know what I'm doing, Mom. You can't tell me what to do. And then you go out there and you do something stupid. But your mom will always be there for you, or your mother figure, or your auntie, or your grand, whoever it is. She's always going to be there for you and tell you it's all going to be all right. And I'm dying. Tears are about to come out of my eyes right now. I love that scene because Marvel has a way of taking the superhuman and putting the human first.
Yeah.
The super comes, but human comes first. So Thor all the way for me.
That's what happens when you hire Renee Russo to be somebody's mom. You know what I mean? She's so good.
Hey, we're about the same age, but she could be my mom.
I'll
be her daddy.
Thor's, he also felt like it was his fault. Like he could have gone for the head, as he eventually did, and Thanos told him to. And it meant nothing. And it did, and getting back to some of the jokey parts of it, it is the fact that like only 2 movies ever made me feel like I could be a superhero, and Thor in Endgame is one of them because having a beer belly is something I'm very used to. And also, Spider-Man and the Spider-Verse, Peter B. Parker, being, sweatpants, gut hanging out, like those, and
Barbecue Dad Spider-Man.
It's weird to say this, but
Miles Morales.
Superheroes I never really felt connected to because yes, I look like them, but I can't do what they do because I'm not in shape. Thor and Peter B. Parker proved me wrong.
I was gonna tell you, man, it was a shame that you started losing weight and quit wrestling.
Right.
You could have become Fat Thor. That could have been your.
I used to have the hair. I could have thrown an eye patch on, whatever. Mike, what's the character you?
So it's really there's no sense in me saying anything because following this loquacious fellow,
I don't even know what loquacious mean.
Did you catch it? But I think you might be able to. You have already caught it, sir. So there's really, when it comes to Thor, I feel like he was the character with the most amount of story to tell. We've seen him grow in the Marvel universe probably the most, and I like you said, Marvel puts the human in the superhuman. We got to see. I love telling stories where it's not just all right, a flash in the pan. We're going to do big action sequences. We're going to do these big, sweeping scenes where you see a good guy fight a million bad guys, and all right, you're happy your guy won. Thor has PTSD. I love those stories where you're actually you're tapping into real emotions, and seeing Thor realize that he was still worthy back in Asgard when he has Mjolnir. That was like a moment where, all right, they're not. It's not a disservice. You go into the movie and you say, all right, they made Thor fat. He's a joke. But as the movie continues on, that's not the case at all. This guy is still a hero. He's arguably one of people's favorites now, and he just keeps on bringing it, even though he's lost everything.
Right.
So he had to be the best him he could be. He even said that. His mother told him, "Don't be what I wanted you to be.
Yeah.
Don't be what your father wanted you to be.
Yeah.
Don't be what your followers want you to be."
Yeah.
And that's a good thing to tell everybody out here. Be the best you can be. These movies ain't preaching and banging you on the head with a mallet. But when you sit back and watch it, that's what they're telling you. You should be the best you can be.
And another thing that they told through Thor, celebrate your failures.
Exactly.
Because it's part of the learning process.
And when you win, it's going to be that much sweeter.
Yeah, absolutely.
It looks like you have something to say, Garrett. Do you?
It just like tickles me when people, because I like those themes are definitely in these movies,
Yeah.
but they're like Saturday morning cartoons to me too, and so like it just is like very funny to me when people are like, yes, I was like very emotionally moved by Tony Stark's sacrifice, you know.
Well, and I was emotionally moved this whole movie. I mean, the opening moments of this movie is Hawkeye.
Yeah.
Right? And I never thought that Hawkeye would make me cry. And that was the first time I saw it. That was the scene when he loses his kids and his family. And like I knew he had kids, but like his story's always been so small. And still, even in Endgame, I don't think his character was done a lot of justice. Thankfully, we're going to get a series on that.
Yeah, I'm interested to see what that turns out to be.
Yeah, and hopefully it gives that character justice. But the first time I saw Endgame, I saw Hawkeye with his family and like just enjoying life. And I don't know, maybe it's because I am way more emotional after becoming a dad.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I cried 10 minutes, if that, into the movie. I'm tears running down my face. And I think for that reason, Hawkeye was kind of like the character I liked the most in this, even though he was a very small part of it. Like gave me an emotional journey, and I understand why he went Ronin and why he went John Wick and whatnot, because he had to. That was the only way he was going to fight back.
He fought a bunch of people in a rainy neon lit alleyway. That's all I ever want to see in movies.
All I know is this is the one movie I've ever seen that I thought they needed grief counselors for.
Right.
Like in Infinity War, you walked out of there and you're like, what the? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then you watch this one and things got better, but you still felt like you lost a friend or a family or a relative or something.
I was surprised how like moved I was by the end with like Captain America and stuff. Like it did surprise me how much I cared about these characters once we got to the end of all of this.
Right.
You know?
Because these characters, for the most part, at least the original 6, we're not going to see in the way that we know them, if at all, again. We're going to see Hawkeye again. We're going to see Black Widow again.
I feel like Chris Hemsworth is going to be the one that just is always in these movies for the rest of his career.
And Chris Hemsworth,
he said as much. Yeah, he said, I'm going to be Thor until you guys get sick of me.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think, as Guardians of the Galaxy has to happen. It's got to be a thing. So I don't know, you might not have answered this though. Was there a scene that moved you to tears?
No, I didn't.
No, okay.
Of course not. This guy has no soul.
I'm not.
It's an iron vault.
No, I cried during probably too many movies, but these just like don't, they don't hit me that way.
See, I cried during the Muppet movie, so I cried during everything.
Yeah.
So what was some of the scenes that had you already talked about the Thor scene, but what were some other scenes that really got you?
was my jam. That was my jam because I think of my mom when I seen that one.
Yeah.
Okay.
But then my jam is when old Cap came back and handed off the mantle of Captain America. I'm like, oh my God, white people are going to lose their minds. So I said, I better come to this convention and represent and take the heat for Anthony Mackie. But I'm like, Marvel ain't going to do this. They won't do this. And they did it. They took that step because let's be real, in the real world, they thought African Americans, they would play okay in America. But you will not go to Japan and put a picture of Captain America as a black guy and it's going to sell tickets. Then what's his name? Black Panther came out and ruled the world, right? And then they're like, black makes green. So, you know what? The next time you run across any racist person, they say something to your colored friends and your melanated friends, just look him right in the face and say, black makes green. and namaste. Then just walk away. But that scene when he gave him the shield, because I got questions about that. And the whole question about him being married, that was beautiful.
Right.
The funeral scene, which was the most expensive scene in that movie, when you think about it. Because everybody was literally there. They weren't placed in there through CGI.
What happened if there was a terrorist attack?
Just
Hollywood's A-list.
You know what? Josh Trank's Fantastic Four would show up. No! Famous actors who did nothing but stand there, and it was a beautiful one-shot scene. That was touching.
So you got the kid from Iron Man 3.
Yes.
Everybody's like, who's this kid? Uber driver?
Poor guy.
I saw the first one, I'm like, that's like, who? And then...
I know, I felt bad for that kid, because as the camera was passing by him, I literally heard my whole theater go like, who is that?
It's weird, like the Tony scene really, I expected that to happen. So,
Yes.
Yeah.
you know, and it was a beautiful scene,
Yeah.
but it didn't drive me to tears, but the funeral scene of them just standing there, and Nick Fury just sneaking in the back behind Captain Marvel, you know, because they're tight. And that scene was, another weird tears though, was watching Hulk eat pancakes. Call me baby. I thought that was fun.
Going back to Tony's, like, before his actual funeral when he dies, that his sacrifice didn't get me. It was Tom Holland, and maybe it's because this dude can act and he can emote, but like it was him approaching Mr. Stark, and like I felt the tears, and then when Pepper showed up, and the tears just, it was. I didn't think I was going to cry because I was expecting it. Like we all were expecting Tony to die in some fashion.
I'm like legitimately surprised they never let Tom Holland call him Uncle Tony in any scenes, and just use him as like his Uncle Ben for like the, you know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
But
I'm glad they didn't.
I will double down on that one and make it worse for you because this was sad. Ready? It's when the little girl, his daughter, was talking about
About the cheeseburgers.
about the cheeseburger.
That got me too.
Oh, getting cheeseburgers!
I cried over cheeseburgers. Only Marvel could do that.
Yep.
I love you 10,000.
3,000, sorry.
3,000. I love him more.
All right, Mike. What was some of the scenes that got you?
So the first time we weren't too emotional during the Black Widow Hawkeye scene on Vormir. I think it was too shocking. You know, like it was there. You know, you knew it was going to happen because you knew the cost of the Soul Stone. Seeing it the second time and knowing it was coming, I was able to build up to it a little bit more. So that hit kind of hard.
That was good though.
Both times. How about this? Those end credits. Seeing your original 6 sign off on these characters who they've played for 11 years.
Like Star Trek.
Yep.
Hold on,
Star Trek first.
we got to talk about these end credits. These end credits were bananas.
Yep. Oh yeah, it was fantastic.
So I don't know, this is really nerdy, but end credits get handled by like a lot of negotiations among unions and stuff, like who gets credited how. And
This is why we have a movie guy here.
yeah, so there's a lot of big actors in these movies, and this one specifically has a lot of sort of elder statesmen that are in the movie, and so they get these with credits. Yeah. So you get like starring so and so, starring Robert Downey Jr., starring Chris Hemsworth, starring Chris Evans. But then you get with, and then that's where you go to now I can't think of any of their names.
Well, Rene Russo was a with, right?
So like Rene Russo would be one.
With Samuel Jackson.
Samuel L. Jackson, right?
I think he was an also.
He might have been an also, but that kind of thing. But then, what's his name from Parks and Rec? Star-Lord, Chris
Pratt. Yeah, he was.
Chris Pratt got a with.
Yeah.
Among all of these, like, I was like, that dude has an agent that people hate. Like, whoever his agent is argued him the craziest credit I've ever seen. He is the dumbest Avenger, and he got, like, in the big A-list part of the cast. It was crazy.
The dumbest Avenger. I love that. They like Thor. Oh, I'm the strongest.
Yeah.
The dumbest. I love it.
He's definitely the dumb. I couldn't believe where his name was in the credits. That's my nerdiest opinion about Endgame, by the way.
That might be the nerdiest opinion about credits I've ever heard.
I've never heard opinions about credits.
Yeah.
You said that.
Mike, you brought up Black Widow and Hawkeye in that scene, and I feel like this was kind of a diverse scene. Once after seeing it a couple times and hearing people talk about it. So I do want to I want your opinions on that scene from the three of you. Like, do you think that played out the way it should have, with Black Widow sacrificing herself, or should it have been pretending that we don't know about the Hawkeye TV series? Should Hawkeye have sacrificed himself? Garrett.
I think between those two characters, it's the most emotionally satisfying for Black Widow to sacrifice herself. I think the way they set her up in the movie, it's the right end for her character, due to like the way that she has decided to handle her trauma, where she is just constantly on watch for something. There's that line about the earthquakes under the ocean or whatever.
Yeah.
And she's like, what do we do about that? And she's like, nothing. That's called nature. Like we let it run its course. I think of her and Hawkeye in that scene, it's the most emotionally satisfying for her to be the one that sacrifices herself. I do think it's kind of wonky in the world of like this boys' club that the woman is the one to sacrifice herself. But I do think when it's those two characters they decided to put in that position, she's the one that it makes the most sense for.
So follow-up question then, is there another way you would have played out some of those scenarios with the different teams?
Oh my god, yeah, well that didn't make sense anyway. Why would you send Nebula to the one storyline where there will also be a Nebula?
Because then you don't get Thanos from the past back in the present.
Yeah, exactly, because plot. That's why, because plot. But that whole thing, that was wonky to begin with, I think. But it does allow for emotionally satisfying conclusions. So I run with it. It's fine.
Rodney.
Black Widow, her story arc, for people who would say in the first Avengers movie, she didn't have enough to do. Look at the time. Yeah. She had more screen time than anybody in that movie. You didn't recognize that because you were looking at the big giant guy running around. But every film that she was in, they built her character up. They gave you her backstory. They talked about the ledger in the first time of you meeting her. The lullaby and the maybe love affair between her and Bruce Banner because she considered herself a monster because of procedures done to her. Very relevant stuff. And the fact that she doesn't have family, which this movie said that Thanos took her family. Her family were the Avengers. Her job was to, I guess, avenge, but that's all she had. But she knew Clint had family. She knew that little boy, Clint's son, was named after her. Right. And she knew that she had to be the one to sacrifice herself so Clint can get himself back, because Clint, in backstory, got her away from the life that she was leading. So it couldn't have ended any other way.
It definitely makes the most sense, I think, if you're putting
And I
those two
thought the
characters
coolest
through that.
part, it's little, but if you pay attention while they're fighting, Red Skull is laughing.
Is he?
He's just in the
I
background.
didn't notice that. That's why I
didn't
didn't
notice
notice
that
that either.
I guess there's another reason to watch this movie now.
So it had to
So I
wait.
gotta
like
watch
you
it a
said.
fifth time?
So I thought Black Widow had to go, and it's cool because she's coming back. So it's all.
Yeah, we'll see her again.
Now-
we don't know how
Yeah,
long.
they've
so-
already proven to us that there's no such thing as a permanent death in this universe, like over and over.
Although, I mean,
Unless your
my
name
boy
is
Quicksilver.
Martha
Or Uncle Ben.
or Uncle Ben.
We don't even get Uncle Ben in the MCU.
Good.
We get, I think, his
Don't
initials
need-
on the briefcase in Far From Home.
Okay.
So-
There, all right.
It was it? All right. I've been told.
You got school. Mike, same question.
So, I mean, it's tough to elaborate on that, but I will say the original write-up of that scene was not just the two of them. Originally, Thanos and his people were going to end up on Vormir as well and try to get the Soul Stone from them before they could make those sacrifice plays. And during that scene, they were fighting off Thanos and his goons while trying to kill themselves and hurl themselves off this cliff. So that would have been
sounds
very
awesome.
interesting.
That's a bit much, though.
But I will say-
I wonder if that would have been good.
I feel like it would have just been
It
too
sounded
Yeah,
good.
it would bother the story. You wouldn't have had that emotional.
Right, yeah, okay. Yeah. It would have been too comic-y.
This coming from the guys that would watch a movie that was 2 hours longer than this 3 hour.
So it's criminal that that Black Widow was not able to partake in that final scene because she's been in the MCU as long as Iron Man, just about.
Yeah.
We've seen her since Iron Man 2. To watch her be a part of this and then kind of watch her robbed of that moment does kind of stink.
I don't think she was robbed, though.
I mean, it was an emotional payoff and everything, but again, to Garrett's point, it almost felt like, it would have made sense to have her there. It was kind of like a boys' club. The ladies had that awesome.
Then the ladies came in and represented. Right, ladies? Did y'all represent or what?
But it would have felt
Man,
so
my
much more-
estrogen was flowing. Man, I wanted to be on the horse. With the wings.
Pegasus?
Yeah, that was awesome. So yeah, they didn't lose nothing there.
No, I mean, it would have been nice, and they didn't really recognize it enough, I think, her sacrifice play, because so much had to happen between that part of
they
the
did
movie
give
and
her
the
a
end.
funeral.
Yeah, I mean, sort of.
Yeah.
They talked about it a
When
little
I
bit.
go, I want everyone here to throw a bench in the water.
So, yeah.
It's the bench. Cap was sitting on it.
Well, Cap found it and sat on it.
Was that the
A
bench?
geriatric man sat at the bench.
We have a couple minutes left before I want to turn it to the audience to ask some talented people some questions. So I have one or two more things to touch on. I know you have to watch Endgame, and not worry about the time travel at all. But after watching it a few times and reading a couple articles, I think now that we're so far away from it, it's okay to like kind of look back and like, all right, they explained away some plot holes by saying, well, this is how our time travel works, so that we can avoid plot holes. But I think it created other plot holes. I just want to. You know, you're a big time travel guy.
I love time travel movies.
I know very specifically this question is for you, but I want you two to answer it too. How did you think the time travel worked in Endgame, and did it?
Well, no, I'm like of two minds about it, because on one hand, I really like that they go for the sort of looper thing, where it's like, stop thinking about it, it doesn't matter, it's just for the plot convenience of the story to happen, so don't worry about it, like just enjoy the ride. And I'm kind of on board with that. But I also get frustrated with movies that go, it really doesn't matter. So now let's explain exactly how it works, which is nonsense. We've just told you it's nonsense, but we're still going to try and explain it. Because then you do get into like, wait, so what are we doing? Like, how exactly does all of this work? And it doesn't. It really does not make sense. I heard, I assume we'll get into this at some point today, but a lot of people get very curious about, and I truly think this doesn't matter. These are all things that don't matter, but if we're talking about it, what's going on with Cap at the end? Is this a Cap from an alternate universe, or is this a Cap that traveled back in time, lived a whole other life, and then showed back up here? And I heard an interview with the writers where they said one thing, and I heard an interview with the directors where they said exactly the opposite thing. Yeah. So the people that made the movie don't even know like what they were doing with the time travel in it.
I tend to lean towards the writers, right? Because they're the ones that originally wrote the story, and they've been the ones that set it up since Winter Soldier, where like, hey, we are gonna, or was it Winter Soldier or Civil War, where she's married and on her deathbed?
Civil War. No, it was Winter Soldier when she was on the deathbed and you saw her.
Oh, was it Winter Soldier?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's Winter Soldier. The audience is letting us know.
Yeah.
It's Winter Soldier, and they've been setting up since then that like she's always been married to Cap, and that's the version I like. I think that plays better. Any other thoughts on the time travel?
It makes little enough sense that no, I don't have further to say.
Look, we're sitting here arguing over time travel when there's a 7-foot green guy running around, a guy from Asgard, a rich white dude flying around in a spacesuit.
Now, come on, that's believable.
I mean, that's believable, right? But you're worrying about the time travel aspect of it, and I just think, like you said, you go along for the ride. I thought it was even funny because they tried to explain it in the movie, and everybody had a different explanation, where the ancient one had a version of it, which works. But then Banner comes in and says certain things that work. And then you see that play out. If you're paying attention, it plays out. Elsa! It plays out. And
let it go.
I like the time. Yeah. Watch it, enjoy it, let it go. If you watched enough Star Trek and you go, you enjoy that, and every Star Trek has a time travel story in it. So the way I look at it is if I could go back in time and change an aspect of what I did yesterday, would you be here today? Hear that silence? No one cares! And that's what I'm saying. Just watch it, enjoy it, go for the ride. They needed that MacGuffin to actually make this story work.
Mike, I know your opinion about time travel, because you don't like when it doesn't make sense. I know that.
So rather than get into that, I actually have questions for everybody in the audience about this question. So there's 3 things that I want to know. One, do you think that Steve talked to Peggy about smooching on her niece? That's one thing he kept a secret. That just never came up, right?
That's one thing he kept secret.
2, we know that he had to get the Infinity Stones back in place. How do you think you get the Soul Stone back in place in Vormir?
Throw it in the water. Yes. He didn't have to meet Red Skull to do that. Then what? They gonna start fighting again? Throw it in the water.
I don't know, man. I don't know if it's just that easy. Do we get Nat back if something like that happens?
No, dead. Right? Dead is dead.
So no tradesies. All right. And then third, do we think that that the multiverse kind of theory from Spider-Man: Far From Home opened up because of the time travel elements here?
They opened up a few
I hear a lot of no's out there.
Well, I'm assuming the no's are just that there just is a multiverse, right? But maybe what they did with the time travel opened up a way for them to possibly enter these other.
So it's not the snap.
Right.
It's the
Could
time
be.
travel.
I don't know.
Well, according to the trailers on Far From Home,
it was the
snap
snap.
caused
Right.
all these openings of
Yeah.
multiverse characters. And,
Yeah, it's a lot.
That's what I
do
think too. It's a Mysterio movie. I think that's all a lie. But I also think this is their way to conveniently go. But also, multiverse is a thing. Like, be prepared. We're going
it's
there.
coming.
Yeah.
Because that way you can tell more stories.
Is there any? Do you guys have final comments on Endgame and this era of the Marvel universe? I do want to maybe touch on what you're looking forward to going forward before we turn it to the audience.
I'm just excited about not knowing what's after, Spider-Man. We know the movies that are coming out, but we know so very little about what it's actually going to accomplish. Because when you look at things like Shang-Chi, and you look at things like the Eternals, they're as new to an audience seeing this in a cinematic universe as Guardians was when that was first coming out.
That's true.
I wrote a list because I knew this one was coming.
Okay.
And I'm not answering any of these. If y'all know the answers, shout them out because I don't know. Is Cassie Lang gonna be a superhero now that her dad is back as Ant-Man?
She's stature in the comics.
I think
Is Hawkeye's daughter gonna be the new Hawkeye?
I think they're probably going to do like a Young Avengers, right? That's
Right,
probably what
absolutely.
they're setting these young characters up for.
Yep.
Yeah.
What's Hulk's role gonna be now? He's basically a one-armed man in a butt-kicking contest now. And here,
More arms enough.
Doctor Strange doesn't have the time stone. So what goes on with Doctor Strange too now?
Do we care what goes on with Doctor
Strange is the man.
Yeah!
Is this going to affect Killmonger coming back from the dead? And will Keanu Reeves be Namor the Submariner who caused that earthquake
Ooh,
there?
man, that better happen. Holy
Oh my
cow.
God! I didn't even think he'd be no
Holy
more.
cow.
Oh my God! I
That
even
better
shivered.
happen, yeah. What are you
He's
talking
shivering.
about?
I'm making shiver.
Keanu breaking the internet
I
again.
want that.
I mean, the Eternals are basically coming out in the movies, and the Eternals are direct relatives to Thanos. Thanos was an Eternal. So how do they feel that their brother got killed? Or maybe they don't care.
They're kind of happy. They're like, yeah.
As Guardians of the Galaxy, like you said earlier, we got a Morbius film coming out that has nothing to do with this, but it looks cool.
I forgot about that.
But I'm gonna end it on this. What type of radiation did these stones generate? They generated gamma rays. So if you're gonna say in 5 years' time, who's to say the radiation from the snap doesn't affect pregnant women and they give birth to mutants?
Absolutely. That's a good call.
Because now they own it. I know I'm a freaking genius, right?
That's a way. That's a way to bring
I
him in.
can't find parking space in Philadelphia, but I can come up with some good stuff, right?
You took me on a whole journey, man.
Yeah.
I thought,
I
oh my
feel
God.
like that was as close to a standing
H.R.R. Martin understands. You get it, right?
I thought you were about to be like, people be birthing Hulk babies. Like, I had no idea where that was going.
But there you go. The radiation mutates the embryo that comes out.
Yeah.
And then they're allowed to use it.
All right. Final comment on the future, and before we can turn it to the audience.
I'm excited about the new Spider-Man movie. I really like Homecoming. I like that director a lot, John Watts. He made a movie called Cop Car that's very good. If nobody's ever seen it, Cop Car's excellent. So I like him as a director. I'm excited for that movie. And I saw some people interested in time travel movies. We were talking about that. There's a Spanish movie called Time Crimes that I highly recommend if you're into time travel movies. It's a really fun, tight time travel story.
Awesome. So before we leave today, does anyone have questions? We have a writer, we have an artist, and we have a movie buff here, and a podcaster. But don't ask me a question.
It's more comments as far as Endgame. I would really love to see over the development from the first introduction of Falcon, Anthony Mackie's character. For some reason, his intelligence seemed to have been surgically removed. His intelligence from other timelines, comic books, animated, he should have rivaled Tony Stark when it came to his intelligence. I would have really loved to see him be more than just the quintessential black sidekick.
Well, in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, the way they introduced him was that he was actually a combat veteran. So, being that he was a combat veteran, and that's what tied him and Steve together, and with the Falcon flight suit, that just showed that he saved a bunch of people while wearing this prototype Falcon flight suit. So, to have another genius, I would rather have like Riri Williams be introduced, or somebody else. I mean, dude, you're already Captain friggin' America. Look at me, I'm the dumbest dude in the room, and I'm wearing the shirt.
I know a lot of people are into the idea of like Shuri coming up too as like a
Right.
sort of a follow-up.
And she's supposed to be the smartest, smarter than Tony.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, I've
I hear you, though.
Since the first movie. It's just an observation.
Yeah.
Not a judgment so
We're
much.
not jumping on.
I'm gonna stand by it.
I mean, if you
I wouldn't have minded a few more minutes in the movie to see the resolution between Banner and the Hulk and how they came to their agreement.
That definitely felt very underserved over the course of Infinity War in this movie.
They came up with a co-op.
It feels like that's 5 hours of movie that they could have given us some sort of like, how do we get from one to the other?
And we might get that. Who knows?
Yeah.
Thanks.
Anyone else?
You're probably gonna have to start lining up these.
People are gonna have to come up because this cord is now long enough. So let's get up here.
So the moment that I really thought was great at the end when they were all fighting was when Captain America got the hammer.
Woo!
The best part of that though was Thor going, "Yeah, I
knew it."
And I just thought that that scene, and that was possibly the best thing of that is, especially once they started fighting, there were so many little bits to service every fan. You could be a fan of anybody, and all of a sudden,
Right.
Captain America coming just blowing through all the ships.
Yeah.
Because she was
Captain
crazy.
Marvel, yeah.
Captain Marvel,
yeah.
Captain Marvel blowing through all the ships because she was crazy.
And
powerful.
that was the one thing that worried me. I'm like, she's so powerful. Good question, by the way, and good smart. I dug that. I was so worried of the fact that Captain Marvel was so powerful. I was like, she can beat these guys by herself. But the fact that she has to patrol the universe, it gave me a good excuse of why she wasn't there.
Yeah.
But now they still need to give her kryptonite.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so I've had my one of the biggest debates online is who's the next big bad we can look forward to now that Thanos is no more.
Oh man, that's hard. I got a good one.
I have two.
Let's hear them.
My primary two are Kang the Conqueror and Galactus.
Galactus is mine.
Okay. Either of you two?
So I personally think we might see Annihilus.
Yeah, I could see that. I mean, for some reason I keep thinking of X-Men villains. Like I feel like because they might be able to get the mutants back into the universe, that they are going to do something like go a little more to the X-Men side of things to give us a big bad.
Yeah, well, Fox does belong to Marvel now.
There's a okay. But mine is gonna be the bug.
I feel like if you're gonna reach into the Fox, toy
Yeah.
box though, you're gonna reach for Dr. Doom.
Thank you,
Yeah.
nailed it. Dr. Doom.
Who
else bought Tony Stark's building?
Well,
Right?
to be
Well,
honest, I
what
somebody
about
bought it.
What about Norman Osborn?
Well, to be
He's
honest,
not as super.
Sure, but
he can. I can see
Darn.
Doctor Doom being in one, maybe two films, but not really the big bad Thanos. It's not really. I just don't I somehow just don't see it.
Yeah, I think Doctor Doom does make a great villain for an arc, and like maybe, for lack of a better term, a henchman.
But
to
if you have
Galactus.
Dr. Doom calling Galactus,
yes,
because you need a worldwide threat.
Because I can't think of an X-Men villain on the top
Good
of my
questions,
head
young man.
that's up there. I like Galactus. That's my pick.
Hi.
Hello.
So more comments than questions. In terms of time travel, I'm with you. I like the writers. I think it's more sweet and romantic that he was always her husband. I just love that.
Yeah.
'Cause we never
Yeah.
saw pictures of her
I like
husband.
that too.
So that was my one thing.
But that was sweet. But there was a Captain America also laying in the ice at the time.
Look,
Think
he
about
did
that.
what he had to do. He deserved it.
I mean, but there's two Captain Americas living at the same time.
He was in ice. It doesn't count.
One's in the ice and one is getting nice. You know what I'm saying? And then when the one, she dies and he gets old, that other guy's gonna thaw out in his timeline and become Captain America. So that's what you got to look forward to.
And more to comment on the girl power scene. I go back and forth with it. When I first saw it, I liked it. I still think it's good. But now I saw it again. I'm like, because they really didn't do anything kind of afterwards.
I feel like they kind of pushed it
agree
into.
with you, because I feel awkward saying this because that's not a scene that's for me, right? Like the scene is not directed at me, but that scene really feels to me like Disney trying to just cash in on an entire just kind of like social movement, as opposed to actually participating in it or really, because really none of those characters have much characterization other than that they are the women of that universe.
But you didn't want another 3 hours of film, so they couldn't develop it.
Listen, I would have taken it if that's what it was.
I liked the movie what it was.
I liked it. It's
Yeah.
just like it's back and forth.
It felt ham-fisted.
Do
A little bit.
You read comic books? You ever read a really good comic book drawn by Jim Lee, but he had a horrible writer, and he had this fantastic splash page, and everybody's posing, and it looks awesome? Then the writing stinks. So all you got is that splash page.
Yeah.
There's your splash. That's a very good point. It would have made a really good poster.
Yeah.
Okay, so in the Spider-Man Far From Home trailer, we see Mysterio, and his story is that he's kind of from another reality, and he's helping S.H.I.E.L.D. to fight these bad guys who we don't know much about. But in the comics, Mysterio is often seen as kind of a master of illusions, and a lot of people think he's making up being from another universe, like the bad guys are his creation. What are your thoughts on this?
You know how good-looking Jake Gyllenhaal is? Like, when a guy that good-looking is like, I'm from another world, I'm here to save you, you should be very worried. Like, he's probably lying to you.
And I'm just wearing a fishbowl on my head. But on a plus, he's one of the few actors, when they wrote that for him, he wasn't supposed to wear the costume through the whole movie. And he's like, dude, this costume was awesome. I have got to wear this costume. But show up with a suit. You know, so what, his sister looks like a Cabbage Patch Kid. But he don't. But that's a good question. Maybe Mysterio did create those elemental guys in these lines, because like you said, he is the master of illusion. So, man, you got me something to think about when you're driving home. Good question.
Yeah.
I just wanted to ask you guys, you spoke about the character development of the characters who survived the snap. Who do you think did not survive but came back, but even in the process had the best character development? In my personal opinion, I'd go with T'Challa. For a very, very small moment, but a very significant moment. In Civil War, when he fought Hawkeye, Hawkeye introduced himself, hi, I'm Clint. What do you say? I don't care.
Yeah.
And he knows exactly who he is.
Right. When they're playing keep away with the gauntlet, and Hawkeye got dogpiled, you notice T'Challa would reach for, he said, Clint, give me the gauntlet.
Right.
I didn't notice that. That's awesome.
And he knew my name.
That's a really good detail.
And good question, because another one of those, I got goosebumps just thinking about it, when you got a dude that's like, I'm by myself, I got a broken shield, I'm holding this hammer, and it's just me. I'm gonna tighten my strap, and I'm going in for it. And he has a horde of thousands coming at him, and you hear on your left. Yeah. And that just blows your mind. And then you go, did I just? On your left. And if that didn't get you, when the first portal opened, T'Challa comes out, and I'm like, Lord, I'm in church. Black folks done lost their mind. Everybody's screaming and throwing babies in the air. So yeah, Black Panther. He did. It wasn't the Black Panther's movie, but they, like I said, they gave everybody a chance to shine, and that's all you gotta ask for. I mean, we're about the same age, dude. We knew, we grew up as kids going, we're never getting this.
I never thought
We're never gonna get this in our lifetimes. We're not gonna get cool women. We're not gonna get people of color. We got it, and I'm all for it.
And I am going to agree with Rodney here. I think Falcon coming back, that's the minor character in Endgame coming back. Hearing On Your Left, that was like, woo!
They missed a perfect opportunity to do another On Your Left when he came up to Cat on the bench, though.
Oh, sure.
That would have been cute. Then the old dude without a stroke, like, oh, man, you scared me. What the hell?
All right, we have our last question before we get out of here. Go ahead.
Please don't be upset. I actually have two questions. One's big, one's tiny.
All right, let's get out of here, guys.
I'll start with the big one. How do you think Zemo is going to factor into the future? What do you think is going to happen with him?
I think
He's coming back, right? Because he's going to be in the Captain America and Winter Soldier TV show.
Oh, he is.
So
Okay.
he is coming back. And I want that purple stocking on his face, too.
Yeah.
I think we're getting Thunderbolts. I think they've talked about Abomination. They wanted to bring him back. I think that the Black Widow that we're going to see in the Black Widow movie is going to be the second Black Widow.
Right, the young chick.
I think that there's enough characterization now in the Marvel Universe that you can jump into that and do Dark Avengers, you can do Thunderbolts, you can do a lot of these things that you can do Young Avengers, you can do all these things that are in the comics that you would never think would have made it to.
I'm really looking forward to Zemo being in that show because he was one of my favorite villains in the MCU. Probably still is one of top tier villains.
He looks
I
like
really
you.
like his motivations.
Don't he look like Zemo? And I ain't trying to be funny, but straight up.
I feel like I need to lose a few pounds to look
got
like
the
Zemo.
No, you look evil as hell, dude.
I think you guys just want to have
It's that
me wear the
handsome
purple
evil
sock.
thing going on, right?
What was your second question?
Who's your favorite minor character? I always liked Korg, but minor character in the MCU. Which one's your favorite?
Korg is pretty good. My girlfriend's a big Meek fan. She cannot get enough of Meek every time he's on the screen. So I've, by proximity, become a big Korg fan. Yeah.
That's a hard question.
Yeah.
Mine is easy as pie. Rocket. I named my dog after him. And he's just like him.
He's not a minor character.
He doesn't just walk up to me and slap me in the face, but it's the same thing. Rocket Raccoon, my favorite.
I wouldn't call him minor though.
I mean, when he's in a group.
He's kind of short.
I think it's Korg. I'm gonna go Korg. I'm gonna steal the answer.
Luis.
Oh, that's good.
And I really want to see a one-off of him summing up the first 11 years.
Yeah, I'm going with Rocket or maybe even Drax the Destroyer, so that's a good one. Because nothing flies over me, I'll catch it.
I do really like James Gunn's brother that's in the Guardians movies. Kraglin. He's really good. He's a good character. Yeah.
Thank you for those questions. That's great.
Yeah,
thank you all for coming out.
Thanks.
Enjoy Wizard World Comic Con. We're going to be back in this room later talking about the DCEU and how we can fix it. Wow.
Bring your caulk guns.
See you guys. I think that's at 6:30 tonight. See you then. Tellus.com, D66, Blacklisted, the podcast. I Like to Movie, the podcast. Everything is awesome. Look us up. We'll see you around the floor today, I'm sure. Thank y'all.
Thank you all.